Die with Zero, by Bill Perkins. Introduction. In October of 2008, a successful lawyer named Aaron, with 3 young children, received the kind of news that stops the world. Her husband, John, a healthy 35-year-old, had a rare and aggressive cancer. What they thought was just a lump turned out to be a tumor the size of a baseball. An X-ray lit up his body like a Christmas tree. The diagnosis was grim, and the timeline was short. Suddenly, everything they had been working for, the careers, the savings, the careful planning for the future, felt meaningless. The full weight of their reality crashed down on them. A friend, seeing their world collapsing, gave them some simple, urgent advice. "Stop what you're doing," he said, "and spend time as a family while John still can." And that's what they did. Erin quit her job. In between cancer treatments, they didn't chase extravagant bucket list items. They found joy in the simple things. They went to the park. They watched movies. They played video games with their kids and picked them up from school together. When John's treatment took them to Boston, they used the time between appointments to walk the city's historic tours, soaking in every moment while he could still walk. John passed away just 3 months after his diagnosis. Looking back, amidst the devastation, Erin was grateful for one thing: she had quit her job to be with him. This story, as heartbreaking as it is, forces us to ask a question we usually push aside. A question that most of us don't confront until it's far too late. What are we waiting for? We all live with a script in our heads. A script handed down to us by society. It tells us to work hard, save diligently, and delay our gratification for a distant future called retirement. We are taught to be the industrious ant from the old fable, always storing food for a winter that feels a lifetime away, while looking down on the carefree grasshopper who sings and plays all summer. But the author of the book we're exploring today, Bill Perkins, asks a question the fable never answers: what happens to the ant? If the ant spends its entire life slaving away, when does it ever get to live? This is the central question behind Die with Zero, a book that isn't just about personal finance, but about personal philosophy. It's a bold and, for many, a controversial argument that the ultimate goal of your money isn't to accumulate as much as possible, but to convert it into the most meaningful and memorable life experiences you can, leaving as little as possible behind. By the end of our time together today, I promise you will see your money, your time, and your life in a completely new light. You'll understand why saving too much can be as big a mistake as saving too little. You'll learn how to invest in experiences that pay you dividends for the rest of your life. And you'll have a powerful new framework for making sure you don't reach the end of your days with a bank account full of money and a heart full of regret. Let's begin. Book summary. Have you ever heard the fable of the ant and the grasshopper? It's a simple story. The ant works tirelessly all summer, gathering food for the winter. The grasshopper, on the other hand, spends his days playing music and enjoying the sun. When winter comes, the ant is safe and warm with his stockpile, while the grasshopper starves. The moral seems obvious: work now, play later. Our entire society is built around this idea. We are conditioned from a young age to delay gratification, to sacrifice our present for a more secure future. We trade our most vibrant, healthy years for a paycheck, dutifully putting a portion of it away for a time when we're old and gray. We become experts at saving, but we remain amateurs at living. Bill Perkins argues this is a profound mistake. He believes we've overcorrected. We're so terrified of becoming the grasshopper that we spend our entire lives as the ant, forgetting that the point of surviving the winter is to be able to enjoy the next summer. We focus so much on not running out of money that we forget that our real, finite, and most precious resource is time. The core idea of Die with Zero is built on a simple truth he learned from another powerful book: your money or your life. That truth is this: the money you earn isn't just paper. It is your life energy. You trade finite hours of your one and only life for it. When you spend an hour at a job, you are trading 60 minutes of your existence for a certain amount of dollars. Once you see it this way, you start to look at your purchases differently. Is that new shirt really worth 2 hours of your life? Is that daily gourmet coffee worth the hundreds of hours it adds up to over the years? This reframes the entire purpose of money. Money is not the goal. Money is a tool. It's a tool to convert your life energy into something else. And what is that something else? Experiences. According to Perkins, your life is not the sum of your bank account, your job title, or your possessions. Your life is the sum of your experiences. When you're on your deathbed, you won't be counting your dollars. You'll be replaying your memories. The richness of your life will be measured by the richness of those memories. And this leads to a radical conclusion. The goal should be to maximize your positive life experiences, not your net worth. So, if experiences are the true currency of life, how do we get more of them? Perkins argues that we should treat them like investments. Not just any investment, but the most important investment we'll ever make. Think about a typical financial investment. You put money into a stock, and you hope it pays you dividends over time. Perkins says that experiences work the same way, but they pay something far more valuable: a memory dividend. When you go on a trip, buy a concert ticket, or learn a new skill, you get the enjoyment of the experience in the moment. But that's just the beginning. For the rest of your life, you get to relive that experience through memory. You can share the story with friends, look at photos, or just close your eyes and be transported back. Each time you do, you get a small payout of joy, connection, and nostalgia. That's the memory dividend. Unlike a new car or a fancy watch, which often loses its thrill over time, the value of an experience can actually increase as the years go by. The memories compound. A challenging backpacking trip that felt miserable in the moment can become a legendary story of resilience and adventure a decade later. A simple family vacation becomes a cherished touchstone of a time when the kids were little. These dividends keep paying out, enriching your life long after the money is spent. This idea completely flips the script on spending. Spending money on experiences isn't being frivolous, it's an investment in your future self. And like any good investment, the earlier you start, the more time your dividends have to compound. Perkins tells the story of his friend Jason, who in his early 20s, decided to borrow $10,000 from a loan shark to go backpacking through Europe for 3 months. Perkins thought he was insane. At the time, they were both making about $18,000 a year, sharing a tiny apartment. Quitting his job and going into debt seemed like the height of irresponsibility. But Jason went. He saw the horrors of Dachau concentration camp. He sat in a park in Paris with new friends, eating baguettes and cheese and feeling like anything was possible. He fell in love on a Greek island. He came back with stories and a perspective that made him, as Perkins puts it, infinitely richer. Years later, Perkins deeply regretted not going with him. When he finally went to Europe at age 30, he was too old and too bougie to have the same raw, formative experience of staying in youth hostels and living out of a backpack. He had missed the window. Jason, on the other hand, looks back on that trip as priceless. "Whatever I paid," he says, "I feel it was a bargain because of the life experiences I gained. You can't take those away, and I would never have them erased for any amount of money." He cashed in on his memory dividends for a lifetime. Perkins learned a powerful lesson: some experiences are only available at certain ages. You can't backpack through Europe as a 20-year-old when you're 40. You can't play catch with your 10-year-old son when he's 30. Waiting is not always the wisest choice. Sometimes, waiting is a form of wasting. This leads us to the most provocative idea in the book: the goal to die with zero. Now, this phrase is intentionally shocking. It triggers an immediate sense of fear and resistance in most people. Die with zero? That sounds terrifying and irresponsible. What if I live longer than I expect? What about medical emergencies? And the question that comes up every single time Perkins discusses this: what about the kids? Let's break this down, because this is where the practical wisdom of the book truly shines. First, die with zero does not mean hitting zero before you die. That would be a catastrophe. It's an aim, a guiding principle to counteract our natural tendency to oversave and underlive. The goal is to die with as little unspent money as possible, because every dollar left behind represents wasted life energy, hours you worked that you never converted into enjoyment. Perkins gives the example of a hypothetical woman named Elizabeth, who works a 50-hour week, lives frugally, and saves diligently for retirement. She retires at 65 and passes away at 85, leaving behind $130,000. On the surface, this seems like a success story. She was responsible. But Perkins asks us to look deeper. At her hourly wage, that leftover $130,000 represents 6,646 hours of her life. That's more than 2.5 years of 50-hour work weeks that she spent working for money she never got to use. 2.5 years of her life, gone, for nothing. That, he argues, is the real tragedy. So how do we solve this? How can we possibly aim for zero when the future is so uncertain? Perkins offers a few powerful tools and mindset shifts. The first is to deal with the fear of longevity, the risk of outliving your money. We tend to try and solve this problem by self-insuring, which means hoarding a massive cushion of cash just in case we live to be 110. But this is incredibly inefficient. A single person is terrible at managing this kind of risk. The better solution, he suggests, is to use financial tools designed for this exact purpose, like annuities. An annuity is essentially longevity insurance. You give an insurance company a lump sum of money, and in return, they give you a guaranteed paycheck every month for the rest of your life, no matter how long you live. By pooling the risk of thousands of people, they can do this far more efficiently than you can on your own. Using a tool like this frees you from the paralyzing fear of running out of money and allows you to spend the rest of your savings more freely, knowing your basic survival is covered. Now, for the biggest objection of all, the kids. Dying with zero is selfish, people say. I want to leave an inheritance for my children. Perkins's response here is both logical and compassionate. He says that if you truly care about your children's well-being, waiting until you're dead to give them money is the worst possible strategy. Think about it. The median age for receiving an inheritance in the United States is around 60. By age 60, your children are likely at or near their own peak earning years. They are probably financially stable. The money is a nice bonus, but it's not life-changing. Now, imagine if they had received that money at age 30. At 30, that money could have been a down payment on a house in a good school district. It could have funded a business idea. It could have allowed a parent to stay home with a newborn child without financial stress. The same amount of money has a dramatically different impact depending on when it's received. Perkins tells the story of Virginia Collin, a woman who struggled for years as a single mother, living on the edge of poverty while raising 4 children. Meanwhile, her parents had plenty of money, but they were saving it for her inheritance. She finally received $130,000 when her mother passed away. When Virginia was 49 years old. By then, she was remarried and financially stable. The money was welcome, but as she said, it just would have been a lot more valuable, a lot earlier. Perkins argues for being intentional. Decide how much you want to give to your children, and then give it to them when it will make the most difference in their lives, generally, between the ages of 26 and 35. By doing this, you get to see them enjoy it, and you separate their money from your money. The money you've set aside for them is no longer part of your die with zero calculation. The rest is yours to convert into life experiences, guilt-free. But he also reminds us that the greatest legacy you can leave your children isn't money. It's memories. The time you spend with them, the experiences you share, these are the things that will shape their lives and form the bedrock of their own memory dividends. Working endless hours to leave them a bigger pile of cash, while missing out on their childhoods, is a terrible trade. So, how do we put all this together into a practical life plan? Perkins introduces two powerful concepts: time buckets and knowing your peak. Instead of a single chaotic bucket list to be checked off before you die, he suggests you create time buckets. Draw a timeline of your life from now until your estimated end, and divide it into 5 or 10-year intervals. These are your time buckets. Then, start brainstorming all the key experiences you want to have in your life, big and small, cheap and expensive. Don't worry about money at first, just dream. Once you have your list, start placing those dreams into the different time buckets. You'll quickly realize that some activities naturally belong in certain buckets. Hiking the Himalayas? That probably goes in an earlier bucket, when you have peak physical health. Taking a relaxing Alaskan cruise? That can go in a later one. Having kids and taking them to Disneyland? That defines a very specific set of buckets. This exercise does something profound. It forces you to confront the reality that your life isn't one long, homogeneous stretch of time. It's a series of distinct seasons, each with its own unique opportunities. And if you don't plan for those seasons, the opportunities will pass you by forever. You'll wake up one day and realize the window for a certain experience is closed. This leads to the final piece of the puzzle: knowing your net worth peak. For most of our lives, we are in accumulation mode. We work, we earn, and our net worth generally goes up. The traditional advice is to keep this going until retirement, and then to live off the interest, trying never to touch the principal. Perkins says this is a recipe for dying with a lot of money left over. Instead, there should be a point in your life, your peak, where you intentionally shift from accumulating money to decumulating, or spending it down. This is the top of the hill. After this point, your net worth should start to decline, on a smooth glide path towards zero at the end of your life. So, when is this peak? For most people, based on health, income, and enjoyment curves, the optimal net worth peak occurs somewhere between the ages of 45 and 60. That's much earlier than most people think. It means that in your late 40s and 50s, your real golden years, when you still have a good amount of health and likely your highest earning power, you should be spending more aggressively on experiences than you probably are. This doesn't necessarily mean you have to quit your job. It might mean cutting back your hours, or simply making a conscious effort to spend the money you're earning on memorable experiences, rather than just letting it pile up in a retirement account you'll never be able to fully drain. At its heart, Die with Zero is a call to be bold. To take calculated risks, especially when you're young and have little to lose. It's a call to move across the country for a dream job, to start that business, to take that trip. Because the risk of inaction, the quiet, creeping risk of a life unlived, is the greatest risk of all. It's a call to stop living on autopilot. To wake up and deliberately choose the kind of journey you want to have. Because in the end, we all get one ride on this roller coaster of life. The goal isn't to finish with the most tickets left in your pocket. The goal is to get off the ride, breathless and exhilarated, knowing you made it the most thrilling, satisfying ride it could possibly be. Commentary. So, what do we take away from all of this? When I first encountered the ideas in Die with Zero, I'll admit, my initial reaction was one of resistance. It felt like it went against everything I had ever been taught about being responsible. The title itself feels like a challenge. But the more I sat with it, the more I realize that Bill Perkins isn't advocating for irresponsibility. He's advocating for a higher form of responsibility, a responsibility to your own life. A responsibility to not waste the precious, non-renewable energy of your youth, your health, and your time. The most powerful lesson for me, and I think for anyone, especially someone your age, is the concept of the memory dividend. It reframes your entire approach to life. It gives you permission to see that spending on a trip with friends, or a ticket to see your favorite band, isn't just a fleeting pleasure. It's a long-term investment in your own happiness. It's building a portfolio of memories that will sustain you for the rest of your life. When you're young, you are rich in one thing that older people would pay any price for: time. You have decades ahead of you to collect those dividends. Don't waste that opportunity. The second powerful takeaway is the idea of time buckets. This is such a simple, yet brilliant, exercise. We all have vague dreams floating in our heads. Someday I'd like to, but someday is a dangerous word. It's where dreams go to die. By putting your dreams onto a timeline, you make them real. You are forced to see that hiking Machu Picchu isn't something you can do when you're 85. It has to go into a specific bucket, and that bucket has a deadline. This creates a healthy sense of urgency. It transforms you from a passive dreamer into an active life architect. So here are a few simple things you can do, right now, to start living by this philosophy. First, make your first time bucket list. Don't think about your whole life if that feels overwhelming. Just think about the next 10 years. What are the key experiences you want to have before you turn 27? Write them down. Be specific. This isn't about money, it's about intention. What does the next season of your life look like if you design it on purpose? Second, identify one experience from that list you can invest in this year. It doesn't have to be expensive. It could be a weekend camping trip, learning to play the guitar from online videos, or taking a road trip with your best friend. The point is to start practicing the skill of converting your resources, your time and a little bit of money, into memory dividends. Start building that portfolio now. Finally, have a conversation. Talk to your parents or grandparents about this. Ask them what experiences they're glad they had when they were younger, and what they wish they had done differently. You'll learn more about them, and you'll learn profound lessons about the fleeting nature of time that will serve you your entire life. That was a summary of Die with Zero by Bill Perkins. We've certainly covered the main ideas today, but I have to be honest with you. A summary is like looking at a postcard of the Grand Canyon. You get the idea, but it's nothing compared to the feeling of standing on the edge, feeling the wind, and seeing the vastness for yourself. The real power of this book is in the way it forces you to reflect on your own life, your own fears, and your own dreams. This summary is meant to give you a map. If any of the places we've talked about today sound like somewhere you'd want to go, I urge you to get a copy of the book. Reading it isn't just absorbing information, it's embarking on a journey that could fundamentally change the way you choose to live each and every day. You can find a link to the book in the description below. Also, if you found this summary valuable and it gave you something to think about, please do me a small favor and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next deep dive into another life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Let's keep growing together.